All right, folks, so there's a few things, like some of the tables might still be moved and things, but you can hear, right, and see the screen. So our next speaker, I'm thrilled. Last time we didn't get AHS to, it didn't work out for whatever reason. So I'm actually quite thrilled that AHS is here. And so I'm sorry, I forgot your first name. Kareen. Kareen's going to talk about advance. Thank you. I had to have it in my head, like visually in my head. Advanced care planning. Is that right? Oh my gosh, advanced care planning. So I'm handing it over to Kareen. I'm going to stop talking now. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. So nice to see so many of you today on this cold day. My name is Kareen Spronken, and I am an educator with the Advanced Care Planning Goals of Care program with the Alberta Health Services. My background is social work, and for some of you, you may know what a social worker does. Maybe some of you don't. But I've been a social worker for a number of years, and I've worked in a lot of different settings. So I started my career with the City of Calgary, but then I then moved on to long-term care, and then I worked in palliative home care, but I also worked in a hospice, and then with my last job, I was with Tom Baker Cancer Center in the outpatient clinic area, and now I'm in this new role as an educator. So thank you for having me. I hope if you have some questions, you feel comfortable in talking or asking these questions, but I am really pleased to be here to answer any questions and to provide you some really important information, essentially on the green sleeve, but the important documents in it. Okay, so you can go to the next one. That's just me. In the spirit of today and the special events, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that where we live and work is within Treaty 7 territory, the traditional lands of the Stoney Nakoda people of Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley bands, the Tsuut'ina, the Blackfoot people of Siksika, Piikani, and Kaurna. I also respectfully acknowledge that we are on the homelands of Métis Nation within Region 3 territory. Today's presentation will be on advanced care planning. What is it? Why should you do it? And how do you do it? And this is the first document that we'll be talking about, the legal document. It's called the Personal Directive. Then we'll be looking at goals of care, the designation order, or GCD orders. Do I need one? And that's the other important document in that. Then we'll be looking at the green sleeve. What is this? People will be asking, what is a green sleeve? Talk about that, whether you need one, what's in it, that type of thing. So what is advanced care planning? It's about thinking about and sharing your wishes for healthcare with people close to you. So you think of those scenarios if you weren't able to speak on your behalf. It's about sharing the wishes you would want if you couldn't do so. In Alberta, when we pick someone, when you choose someone to make those healthcare decisions, if you become unable to do so, it's called an agent. Other terms people might be more familiar with is proxy, my power of attorney, my substitute decision maker. The legal term in Alberta is called an agent. Writing this information down in terms of your wishes and designating that person, it's putting it into a document, and that document becomes legal, and that document's called a personal directive. So why is this important? And here's this little mouse that's stressed, and you say, oh, I don't want to talk about this. The important thing is the reason why we talk about these things is for those unpredictable events, those stressful events, to have a plan in place. So my goal today, and I've said that to many of you, is to provide the information so you can be prepared, but then you don't add any stress to your spouse, your family, your loved ones, whoever they may be. So that's why it's so important. Back in the day, when you think about it, prior to World War II, most people died suddenly. People didn't have a lot of time between the time, you know, a cardiac event happened and when they passed away. Medicine could do very little for them to prolong their life or cure their diseases or anything like that. But since World War II, with the advancement of medicines and procedures and treatments, people are living longer, and they're living longer with a disease or with a situation where you're more frail. So we see more frail people living longer, okay? And so now part of your role is to be a partner in your healthcare, to make people aware, your healthcare team, the people around you, aware of what your wishes would be, what you would want. So that's really important. So advanced care planning process in Alberta Health Services, they've put it down to 5 steps. It's about thinking about your wishes and values. What would I want? What's important to me? Learning about your own health. Am I pretty healthy for the most part, or have I been diagnosed with an illness where it's life-limiting or it's going to change my quality of life as I get older? It's about choosing someone to make decisions and speak on my behalf. Have you ever made some, done some thoughts about that? Have you done some thinking about that? Who would I want to speak on my behalf? And have I communicated those wishes with that person? And not only my wishes, but my values about my healthcare to that person or to the people around me, like my medical team or my extended family, whoever it may be. And it's about documenting into that document called a personal directive. So what is a personal directive? Oftentimes I'll hear people say, I've got a will. I don't need a personal directive. Just to be clear, personal directive is very different. A personal directive is a legal document in Alberta that allows you to appoint someone you trust to make healthcare and personal decisions if you can't. So these are the decisions that don't involve any finances. It doesn't involve property. It doesn't involve selling of stuff. It involves other decisions, your personal decisions. It's a document where you've written down your healthcare wishes and instructions if you would want people around you to know if you could not speak on your behalf or you didn't have the capacity to do so. So this is completely different from a will or a power of attorney or an enduring power of attorney. I have a lot of people that are reluctant to do a personal directive because they think that as soon as they've assigned someone to be their agent, that they lose their own ability to make decisions on their behalf. Just to be clear, healthcare will consult with the patient first. And if that patient can't make the decision, that's when they go to somebody else. And it's not like automatic. This is something that needs to be activated. So assessments are done to determine that that patient doesn't have the capacity to make decisions. There's a specific process and paperwork to do this. So this is not automatic. If you were to do a personal directive today, it sits dormant or inactive until it becomes activated. Healthcare will go to you first, and I think that's the key here. And I've had many people say, I don't want to do this because then my son will be making all my decisions, and that's not the case. That's all right. So when you write a personal directive, and I've got some examples at my table today, you can do it with or without a lawyer, and some of you have done one, and you may have done it in another province. It would be legal here, but it might be called something different. It might be called a living will or advanced directive or a health directive or something like that. But as long as the spirit of the document is similar in nature, then it would be complied with here. There's no standard format for a personal directive. To make it legal, it must be in writing, handwritten or typed, signed, dated, and witnessed. And that's really important to know that this is something that you can write it down just yourself. You can use a template, and the template you have in your green sleeve is a template that's through the Office of the Public Guardian and Trustee. And that's what it looks like. So this is in the green sleeve. And I also have it on my shelf there where it has instructions on it. The reason why we talk about this is because it is very easy to use. It has instructions on the website as well, but it's not mandatory to use. But if you are like me, and I've had one for about 20 years now, I use this one because it's very simple for me. It was very simple to complete. So I'm just going to talk briefly about the 4 main elements of a personal directive, because these are the things that really come into question sometimes. So in section 1, it's called the revocation of previous personal directives, and it's kind of similar in the sense, like if you were writing a will, you say I want all previous wills before me to be like this one will be initial. We won't take those into consideration. Those will become null and void. So, revocation of previous personal directives in that first section. Why is it important to consider this? So, I mentioned I did a personal directive about 20 years ago. I did that personal directive with my ex-spouse at that time. We were buying a house. We got a lawyer to do our personal directive. We got an enduring power of attorney, and we had the transfer of property and our will done. If I did not revoke previous personal directives when I did it 10 years later with my current spouse, then potentially I could have had both my ex and my current spouse making decisions on my behalf. Now, that might be an example or resonate with somebody you know. That's important to consider. I mean, you may want both involved, but I decided to revoke any previous personal directives. In terms of designating an agent, we'll be looking at that. The importance of designating an agent and the possibility of having more than one. Looking at healthcare wishes and instructions. And this is really important to look at, even though it's optional. And I'll explain why these are important. And then looking at the witnesses and signatures. So at the booth, what I've talked about is some of the handouts with respect to advanced care planning. The Conversation Matters workbook as well, and looks like this. And it gives you information on all of this stuff. It talks about the advanced care planning, what does it mean, and that type of thing. The personal directives template, instruction sheets, and I also have some handouts and some other websites. So what I've been saying to people today is that you don't have to remember anything I've said today. This will provide you everything, plus the additional websites. So if I'm not clear today, you can go to these websites and watch these videos and see what they mean. So before I go on to goals of care, was there any questions with respect to the personal directive? Yeah. The agent cannot witness your document. Neither can your daughter's spouse. Your spouse cannot as well. And on the template, it will actually show you who cannot witness it, okay? Your agent should be aware that you've picked them, because they've got responsibilities as well, but they should be agreeable to this, okay? Now, if you were to pick your daughter and your son, for example, you could have both of them, or you can have one or the other, or you can put it in there so that your daughter's first, and if she's unwilling or unable, then you could have your son or whoever, right? And that's a very important thing to realize. So the important thing about a witness is they have to actually witness you signing it. They have to initial where you've initialed, and vice versa. You have to watch them. Now, I'll give you an example. When I worked at the Tom Baker, I would have many patients come in and they'd say, I did this personal directive with Mom, and Mom's not in the meeting. Can you witness her signature? And I say, no. Well, Mom signed right here. Can you witness it? I said, no, I can't. I haven't witnessed her signing her name. So that's really important. It could be your neighbor. It could be someone that knows you, your friend. It could be somebody else. It doesn't have to be somebody, in your circle, for example. It could be somebody like a neighbor, for example. Okay? So that's really important. That's a really good question. Was there any other questions about that? Yeah. False. False. Okay. So, in the green sleeve, two important documents. One is a goals of care. The goals of care, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Goals of care is a medical order. It's like a prescription that you get from a doctor. That will guide medical staff your approach to care, and whether it's resuscitative, medical, or comfort care, okay? In a green sleeve, you would have this completed by a doctor, plus you'd have your personal directive. Do they work together? For sure. But you can see if you have a personal directive, you've assigned someone to make decisions on your behalf, or you've asked an agent, but there's no goals of care done. So that's two documents that work together, and a lot of times what will happen is you will go to the hospital, you're in the hospital, and you're trying to consent to some procedures, things like that. That's where a substitute decision maker or an agent would help with that. But if you still have all your faculties and you've had your discussion with your physician and you want resuscitative care, without the goals of care, and not everybody's going to need one because I don't have one. I'm a fairly healthy person, don't have a lot of health issues. Without this, EMS finds you on the street, they're going full on. They're doing chest compressions, they're doing intubation, they're trying to get you to the state prior to this event, okay? Their goal is to cure and prolong your life, okay? That's different. So that's not correct information.
So what about if, though, in your personal directive, you have stated that you don't want any Herculean measures, you don't want any heroics, you just, what about that part?
Well, you can put it in there. And I worked in the system prior to this goals of care. Like, so this has been in the system for 10 years. And I worked in long-term care where they'd have four being no heroics. And I never say that word right. But what does that mean? What does that mean? And so that's where the challenge is as healthcare providers. This is clear. This is very clear. And when you look in on the other side of the goals of care, it explains exactly what does it mean. And that's the advantage. If that is something you want to talk to your doctor, do your homework first. Read, what does R1 mean? What does R2 mean? What's the difference? So that if you're talking to your doctor, you need to know what it is. In a green sleeve, you have a doctor's order. So who do you think the staff are going to follow? Do you think that they're going to not follow a medical order? They will, yeah. And once they've resuscitated this person, you find this person on the street, and you know, they're going to be doing all measures because they don't know the goals of care. They get to the hospital, and then maybe that's when the personal directive would come into play, where these wishes were down there. Okay. You can put what you want. Great question. Yeah, great question. So I worked with a colleague that her mom had a green sleeve, and she took it everywhere she went. She was at Market Mall, she had an event, and EMS was called, and they followed the goals of care because she was not an R1. She was a different code level. So people do take it. We call it a health passport. So any appointments that you're going to, it's important to take it with you. It's up to you whether you want to take it with you or not. But if it's important to you to have certain procedures not part of your care, really important to take it with you. So that's your call. There's no pocket thing, or you have to carry this. And sometimes what I've said to people, if you have a personal directive, don't keep the original in here. Keep a copy in here. okay? Your goals of care, your most recent one should be in there, okay? Because goals of care, they change. Some people, they're R1, then they go to M2, and then they're back to R2, and, all over. And that really reflects your health care and what you might need at that time. So, although goals of care, they're really important, they're not written in stone, okay? But without this, and if you don't have this, that tells me you either don't have any health care issues, or you're not concerned about it, or maybe if you don't and you have health care issues and you want to make sure that you don't want to be R1, being that you're full resuscitative care, then you should be having that discussion with your doctor. Okay? Any other questions before I go into goals of care?
So what's the link between the person that's your agent that is non-financial and the person that's financial?
So, okay. So in the event, in that event, so you have an enduring power of attorney or a power of attorney that typically deals with finances only. So sell property, you have to pay your bills, you're going to Vegas for 2 months and you want your son here or your friend to be doing your banking, paying your rent or paying your mortgage or whatever it might be, and you've given them that power to do so, has no connection in that way. Enduring power of attorney and personal directive are documents, are legal documents while you're with us, right? You're with us, you are trying to make some of these decisions with respect to finances or personal, okay? A will is after a person has passed away. So there's 3 documents in Alberta that you need, and they recommend. After the age of 18, if you've got the capacity to do so, you should have a will. That's for when you pass away. An enduring power of attorney deals with finances and that type of thing, and a personal directive that deals with pretty well everything else in terms of personal decisions. Does that answer your question?
Well, I guess the part I was thinking about is the person that's your agent looking at personal directive stuff. Maybe there's a cost implication in there that means that it would go over to the person looking after the finances. What does that linkage look like? Is it between those parties, or do you have an ombudsman that says, hey, I got 2 people that disagree here, what do I do?
Well, that's a great question because some people that are agents are also a person's attorney in the enduring power of attorney. And that's easy if they're the same. But if they're not and they're not agreeable, there is a process where you can file a complaint against an agent if they're not complying with the decisions, if there's disagreements. And that there's a process that you go to the Office of the Public Guardian. There's specific forms have to be filled out, and they would guide you through that process. Okay. Yeah. We'd like to think that everything is, when we do all our documents, that everything is going to be laid out and simple and everyone's going to comply. But sometimes it doesn't happen, unfortunately. Okay. Well, feel free to stop me as I'm going along. I'm going to go into goals of care now. So under goals of care, we have 3, and you could put the next one on. So you have your goals of care, you have your RMC. Those are the big ones. So R is the resuscitative care, M is medical care, and C is comfort care. So under each of those approaches, there's subsets. So then there's an R1, R2, R3, and there's different things that are involved in that. M1, M2, and then C1 and C2. I'm going to be going through these as an examples. So this is what the form looks like, and I've shown a lot of you today what it looks like. Again, backside it gives you an explanation of it. This form is for your doctor or your nurse practitioner. It's a blank form that gets completed by either your physician or your nurse practitioner. And this is something that should occur with your physician. So when you talk about goals of care, it should not be a surprise that you're an M1 or an M2 or a C1 or an R1. You should be having these conversations with your doctor. I've heard stories where people say, well, my doctor said it was this. I didn't understand what they were talking about. These kind of conversations should happen with your physician to ensure that you understand what goals of care approach that you're going to be, if you were found in your home, EMS comes, it will be part of that approach to care. So does everyone need a goals of care designation? Not everyone needs one, okay? In general, it's only necessary if you would want or do not want or benefit from resuscitative care. Your health is changing or your values and goals are changing. So you think about those goals of care forms. We can talk about it more, one-on-one at the table, okay? Because for some of you, and everyone's different, everyone's going through, their own health issues or status or whatever. So it's really important to know your own health, to really understand, am I healthy? Is this something that I would want? I use the example of Tom Baker because I was there for a number of years. And, for some patients, because of their treatment and because they're frail, and this is not everyone, I'm just using this as an example, they would not want full chest compressions. They understand that. They've had that discussion with their doctor. But for some people, the treatment's been fine. So they would want that. So these are conversations you should be talking to your doctor about, especially if you do not want to or benefit from resuscitative care, okay? Or if you have health issues that are changing or you expect that they've been changing, like I said, if you've been diagnosed with a certain condition that that as you get older, maybe you're going to have some more limitations on you. So these are kind of conversations to have with your doctor. Can my goals of care change? Yes. They should be talked about on an ongoing basis, especially as you go, if you're involved in the medical system with respect to a certain disease or a condition. And it's important to talk about those goals and goals of care designation as it reflects your wishes and values. So having those conversations with your doctor. I guess if you're going to hear anything about my speech today is that talk to your doctor. Talk to your doctor. And it was funny, I did an event on Wednesday and people would say, well, I don't have this, I've got surgery coming up. I said, talk to your doctor. And somebody else would come up, talk to your doctor, talk to your doctor. Keep asking these questions. You have that right, and you're a partner in our care, and that's what I was talking about earlier, is about now we're in a situation where you can live with an illness for an extended period. So be partners in care with us being your medical team. So I also have at the table goals of care video. It's really helpful if you have a chance. It will kind of go through it. It'll give you examples on it. So it will go through that. Really good websites if you have a chance to do that. There's also just the goals of care order forms and green sleeves and some other resources to help you. I always would say to my patients, knowledge is power. And the more information you have, the better I feel that I would be equipped to make decisions and to have those conversations with my doctor. I don't know what your approach is with the medical team, but I know with my parents, I would say to them, oh, you've got all these medications, what are they for? I don't know, the doctor gave it to me, I don't know what it's for. It's about understanding why these medications were given to you. Understanding, you don't have to be an expert in pharmacy. You can talk, have a relationship with your pharmacist. They're one of the best people to talk to about your prescriptions that you may have. So really important to, talk about these with your medical team for sure. As I mentioned, the green sleeve, health passport, taking it where you can. You can get a copy from me. You can also go online and get some sent to you as an individual, or if you're involved like in a church group or a coffee group. As an organization, you can order these. They're free. The only thing that you pay for is the shipping. I think it's around $7. So just to be aware of that, that this is something that you take with you when you are involved in healthcare. I have a friend who's a dentist, and she said, yeah, somebody came with a green sleeve to my office. She goes, I didn't know what to do with it. And I said, well, you don't have to do anything with it. You just have to know that in the event something was to happen, you know to give it to the EMS, and they'll act accordingly. So this is a good example. Why do we need a green sleeve as you travel through the healthcare system? And maybe for the most part, you're healthy. But if you are starting to use some of these services on a regular basis, it might be something to consider to take with you. I wish it was smaller, but the way that it is right now, it's a green sleeve. Now with Connect Care, I don't know if some of you have heard, but Connect Care is a system that we're going to be able to communicate some of these things. Now, whether you talked with a doctor in Edmonton, we'll have that information now. We can see the information. So really great system. It's a little hard to put your mind around it, but it's a really good communication tool so that we're all providing care to you that's best fit for you. You can go. Do I have to carry this with me everywhere? That's your choice. Yeah, for sure. But it is a question we get asked all the time. Is there small wallet card? No, there's not. We wish that there was. Some people will even ask about medical ID bracelets. You know, can I have that? Well, you could, but that's not what EMS is looking for, you know, in terms of goals of care. The other thing is, you know, people say, you know, I'll tattoo it on me or whatever. Well, it could change. So just, you know, it is meant to be a guidance for the medical team to approach the level of care, or approach your care that's a good fit for you. Don't you know my goals of care designation? Don't assume that anybody knows your goals of care. I had a fellow that I did a thing at a community center downtown, and this fellow in the audience, he was almost arguing with me, and I'm like, I don't want to argue today. And he said, you're telling me that if EMS finds an elderly person on the street that looks frail, they're going to be doing everything. I said, without the green sleeve, they will do what they can to treat this person and try and get them to hospital, prolong their life. So it will be something that just to be aware that people don't know it. Don't assume that people know it. Netcare or AHS Connect. Now, a lot of physicians are still on Netcare and AHS Connect. Well, that's in relation to Connect Care. And if you are a patient that's regular involvement, we will notice that there is a goals of care designation on that person. But maybe, you know, somebody that isn't involved regularly, it probably won't be there. You can look to see if you can put it on there, for sure. Yeah, but I think the bottom line is when you have a goals of care, if you keep it by the fridge, your updated one, or near the fridge or something like that, and the people close to you have an idea and your physician knows what your updated goals of care is. So, you know, for example, if somebody was doing treatment at Tom Baker, I keep using that as an example, but the oncologist has a discussion with that patient and now they're in M2, where 6 months ago, patient met with their doctor, their family doctor, and they were R2. So having the most up-to-date goals of care is the best, because we don't necessarily go onto your, you know, in an emergency situation, and that's typically when this comes into play, is a crisis or emergency. They might not necessarily go on to AHS Connect to try and find it. They're going to try and get things, you know, the best that they can at that time. Okay. Does that answer it? Okay. Can I use a medical alert bracelet? Well, I kind of talked about that. You could, but no one's looking at it. Okay, typically. That's not what the EMS typically looks at. Okay. So I have those handouts. I've got the green sleeves and what's in it and what to do with my green sleeve. So if you don't remember what to do with your green sleeve, if you have one, come and get one of those sheets. What to do with my green sleeve. Like I said, you don't have to remember anything I've said today, But if you have the information, the resources, you can definitely get more and additional information so that it can prepare you to talk to your medical team, whether it's your physician or your nurse practitioner. So the main takeaways today, if you haven't already, start having advanced care planning conversations and write a personal directive, because it's really important in the event something was to happen to you. It's like that little mouse. I don't want to stress you out more today. That's not my intention. My intention is to provide you the information so that you're best prepared, so that your circle, your loved ones are best prepared for an event, an unpredicted event. You don't have to be an expert in this stuff. The most important thing is have that discussion with your physician, with your people that are close to you. Your green sleeves, your healthcare passport has everything in there. If you need more information, please come and talk to me. Maybe your situation is unique. And you know, when you're in a public forum like this, it's not the most comfortable thing to talk about your own situation. So, you know, definitely come and see me at my table. And you'll see all those resources. So that's all there. Lots to see there. Lots of good information. So, questions? Yeah.
So how widely accepted is the term green sleeve? Other jurisdictions, that's a common term or not? US, Canada?
Alberta.
It's Alberta.
It's Alberta. That is
For traveling, what do you do?
good question. So in Canada, if you're going to Manitoba or whatever, they understand. They have an understanding that we have our own system. Like if you're coming from Manitoba, we understand they have their own system. Again, if the documents are written in similar spirit of the document, then we will comply to it. I mean, there's a lot of people that move from wherever they come here, right? And so definitely they would look at it, okay? Now, if you go to the States and you're going to be there for an extended period, and I've had patients say, yeah, I brought my green sleeve, but they didn't follow it. So I can't account for other countries. My best advice would be, if you are planning to move to Phoenix for 6 months, maybe connect with a healthcare professional down there to get better advice, because I can't give you advice on that. I just have heard from patients what their experience has been. But here in Canada, each province has their own name of their document as well as their goals of care. And it might not look like ours. It might look very different. So, but the spirit of the document, that's the key in Canada. We know that these exist elsewhere. We just want to make sure that you get what you want. Yep.
Raised an issue that is in health a major issue. Every province wants to say, I'm the best, and what we do here is the best, and everything else. Is there any hope that provinces will talk to each other about healthcare? So something like the green sleeve, or everybody is using the same thing. Do you think that there's a movement to get that working at some point, or is everybody going to stick in their silos and I'm blue, Alberta's green, Manitoba's yellow, Ontario's pink, you know? It just, at this stage in our life, it's irrational that the provinces across the country cannot recognize, let's just share information and support each other, rather than saying, no, we do ours to you, I don't care about Manitoba.
Yeah. What are you doing in your spare time? Would you like to take that mission? I think that's a great.
I'm from the healthcare system.
Yeah.
And it's just not making any sense.
And you know what? I think because according to, and if somebody else knows differently, but I think we get funding from the federal government, but the administration of health is provincial. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. The provinces have to get off their rear ends and work together jointly. Forget the feds for the moment.
Yeah.
Because every province says, healthcare is my business, therefore I don't care. But people, especially now,
Yeah.
are moving like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
We're having a lot more folks join us from different countries.
Yeah.
They don't need so many things as they move from one province to
Yeah.
another before they get settled.
Yeah. Well, there is a national advanced care planning form But again, they've left the individual documents, legal documents, to each province. But there is a national form on this, for sure. Yeah. It's a good point. Yep.
Is RCM continuum of care, or are they three separate choices? Like, could you have like R1 and C2
At the same time?
at the same time?
No.
So
It's one. Yeah. And even, in terms of progressive, like, I don't even know if that's the term I would like to use, because each approach to care really is about providing the best care for that person. And some people will say, well, comfort care, there's there's the assumption there won't be any care, it'd just be like, there's nothing. But that's totally incorrect. It's about providing an approach to care that provides comfort. And what comfort means might be, I need to get radiation to provide comfort, to reduce this tumor so I'm more comfortable. It might not be curative in nature, but it might be more comfort-based. But the approach could mean a lot of different things. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, we're going to play a video, and this is a fellow from Australia, and he is a physician that works in emergency, and his name's Dr. Charlie Cork, and he does a really good explanation of advanced care planning. I'm just going to make a comment after the video, and because every time I see this video, it stands out to me, one thing that he says.
About 80% of people at the end of their life are in a position where they can't make their own decisions. I'm Associate Professor Charlie Cork, and I'm a specialist in intensive care medicine. Some people will say that my family know what to do, or my doctor will know what to do, and unfortunately they're wrong. When a family's got an advanced care plan and knows what their relative want, it's enormously easier for the family, because they haven't got all the responsibility of making these, what they see as impossible decisions. And it makes it ever so much easier for the doctors, because doctors are trying to do the right thing. They just need to know what it is. I think advanced care planning, in a nutshell, is three important things. It's about thinking about it, and just thinking about it starts the process happening. Talking about it to your family, talking about it to your doctor. The third thing is picking a great decision maker. Because 80% of us, right at the end, will not be able to make our decisions. Just at the end of life, the way the process goes, you're not able to make decisions, and decisions need to be made. And a great decision maker is able to talk to the family, talk to the doctors, make a decision, make the right decision for you, and to feel comfortable about it. And it makes the whole process so straightforward, so controlled, and so sensible. And that's really, really good.
I love that video. 80%, and that's every time I hear that, 80% of us will not be able to make decisions on our own at the end of our life. So if you go home today, and hopefully you go home and you think about it, I really encourage you to at least start thinking about it, start talking about it, and hopefully that will lead you down to doing some advanced care plan, whether it's your personal directive or talking to your doctor about the goals of care. Did anybody have any other questions, comments? Okay, well, thank you. If you have any other questions, please stop by my table. I'd love to see you and talk to you about it, okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been great so far. So far, so great. We're going to take some time to look at booths. We're back here at 1:30, and Karine Nairn is going to talk to us about organizing and downsizing and all that kind of stuff. So she's going to help us with that.